Dr. Cole didn't clear his throat, didn't blink. He just pointed at the screen and said, 26 weeks. Calendar says I was pouring concrete in Denver 23 weeks ago. Do the math. The room went silent except for the thump of a heartbeat that isn't mine. I'm Jack Walker. I build houses in Texas. I measure twice, cut once, and I know when numbers don't lie. 26 isn't a rounding error. It's a confession with a due date. Emily stared at the ceiling. I stared at the truth. The doctor asked if I had questions. I had one. Who was in my house while I wasn't? Here's what I didn't do. Scream, plead, or break the monitor. Here's what I did. I looked at the timestamp, asked for copies, and walked out with my hands steady and my jaw locked. In the next 60 seconds, you'll hear why I didn't explode. Because men like me don't explode. We excavate. We expose. I'm Jack Walker, out of Prosper Ridge, Texas. I started with a broom and a dented lunch pail, sweeping sawdust for men who could read a blueprint like scripture. Back then, my pay was cash in an envelope and advice for free. Measure twice, cut once, keep your word, even when it costs. I learned framing from a retired Marine, roofing from a man with 3 missing fingers. Over 20 years, I went from day laborer to owning Walker Construction, 200 paychecks, cranes in the skyline, my name on steel. I still carry a tape measure, still wear the scar on my knuckle from a stubborn nail. Success didn't arrive in a sports car. It came in at 5 a.m., smelling like diesel, coffee, and grit. I thought mastery meant control, that precision could prevent pain. Numbers had saved me 1,000 times. They don't lie. But numbers were about to tell me something I didn't want to hear today. Emily Reed turned heads. Rooms adjusted when she walked in. Blonde hair neat as a checklist, a smile that made people straighten their backs. Her family name carried weight at church raffles and chamber breakfasts, even if the money behind it had thinned out years ago. She ran auctions, chaired committees, knew which fork to use and how to thank volunteers by name. I was the man with calluses. She was the shine. Together, people said, we balanced. Truth is, I liked the way she softened a construction life that could chew a man up. She kept the calendar, planned vacations, remembered birthdays. There's a photo on our mantle. Emily in a blue dress, me in a suit that smelled like sawdust, Tyler between us with a crooked tie. I used to think that picture captured who we were. Until the day I noticed her wedding ring turned inward. No one saw it but me. And I didn't forget, ever. Tyler is 14, all elbows and hustle, the kind of kid who wipes his own cleats before practice because tools should be ready. We built a bookshelf last spring in the garage. I let him drive the screws. He stripped the first one, scowled, then reset the bit and sank the next 5 like he'd done it forever. He's got his mother's brain for tests and my patience for stubborn jobs. On Saturdays, we hit the hardware store early, grab kolaches, and talk about baseball grips and life in the same breath. I tell him the rules I learned the hard way. Show up, own your mistakes, don't lie. When Emily said we were having a baby, he painted a cloud on the nursery wall so soft it looked like breath. Think the baby will sleep through hammering? He asked, smiling. I told him yes. I wanted that to be true. I didn't know I was promising a stranger's child. From the curb, our life looked solid. Brick house with a flag at the porch, a smoker that knew its way around brisket, Sunday service, Friday night lights. My crews nodded when we drove by job sites. Emily waved to the ladies who ran the charity tour. The bank framed our photo after a ribbon cutting. Folks said, "Y'all are the example," and I believed them. Believing felt like gratitude, not pride. We hosted barbecues, loaned ladders, paid for the Little League banner. People sent pies when Tyler broke his wrist sliding into second. There's a rhythm to small-town success. You stack good days until they feel permanent. But permanence is a story we tell ourselves. I started to notice things. A perfume I didn't recognize, receipts with time stamps past midnight, a smile that ended before it reached her eyes. We posed for Christmas cards. The lights on the eaves were straight as a plumb line. The line inside wasn't. It began as absence you could almost excuse. Emily said the boutique inventory ran late. She came home with no bags. She said her sister needed her. Her sister sent a text the next morning. Did you two have fun last night? I told myself I was tired, that men who work sunup to sundown miss details. Then I noticed her phone never faced up anymore. The passcode changed. The visa showed charges at a hotel 40 minutes out, timed to my late pours on a concrete job. At dinner, her laugh landed on the table and died before it reached me. She stopped singing in the car. She started wearing a lipstick I hadn't seen since we were dating, the weekend shade. I asked if she was okay. She said hormones. I bought vitamins and flowers. She didn't touch either. The first lie, I forgave. The second, I folded. The third, I wrote down with the date and time carefully. Cal Barrett has been my right hand since high school baseball and rain delays. He runs the books, keeps crews paid, and reminds me to drink water when July tries to bake us all. Friday nights we sit at Murphy's with two long necks and talk shop. That's where he said, gentle as a pastor, "Jack, Sarah saw Emily at Main Street Coffee yesterday. She waved. Emily jumped like she'd been stung." He paused. "The guy with her wore Austin shoes." I laughed it off, said I trusted my wife, said the pregnancy had her spun up. He nodded the way a loyal man nods when he doesn't want to hurt you. Then he asked, "Do you want me to pull receipts, to rule out mistakes?" I said no, but the word felt foreign in my mouth. We clinked bottles, paid the tab, and walked out into the warm dark. I drove home slow. That night I bought a second phone. Dr. Warren Cole's waiting room smelled like lemon cleaner and winter coats. I've known that scent for 14 years of checkups and flu shots. Framed photos of newborns lined the wall like trophies. Emily flipped a magazine without turning a page. Her knee bounced. Mine didn't. I watched the second hand on the clock make clean clicks, each one a nail. The nurse called our name. We walked the long hall past the plaque with my company's name on it. Walker Construction had added this wing 5 years ago. Funny how you can build a place that later unbuilds you. Dr. Cole was calm, the way good doctors are. He asked the usual questions, typed the quiet answers, then rolled the ultrasound cart close. Gel, wand, static, a shape, a rhythm. I squeezed Emily's fingers. She didn't squeeze back. "We'll take some measurements," he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. I noticed that first. I noticed everything after. Emily used to chatter during appointments. Names for boys, names for girls, jokes about midnight feedings. Today she watched the ceiling vent like it could pull her out of the room. Her phone lit up. She let it die without touching it. "You okay?" I asked. "Just tired," she said, and tried to smile. The kind of smile that never finds the eyes. I've seen nerves before. Workers on their first roof, pitchers on full counts. This wasn't nerves. This was someone waiting for a shoe to drop and hoping the floor stayed quiet. Dr. Cole adjusted the angle, squinted at the screen, and marked something with a soft beep. Emily's grip went cold. The air thinned. I counted tiles to keep my breath steady. 12 across, 8 down. I'm a builder. I count when I'm unsure. "Almost done," he said. The words didn't land. I could feel the moment bending toward a place we wouldn't come back from. The room knew before I did. Numbers don't have mercy. They don't care about last names or wedding vows. "Doctor." Cole froze the image, tapped his pen, and said, almost gently, "We're measuring at about 26 weeks. It was an ordinary sentence in an extraordinary place. 26. The ultrasound whooshed with that steady heartbeat. I've loved that sound before. Today it felt like a metronome marking the end of something. 26. My calendar lives in my head. I knew where I was 26 weeks ago. I knew where I wasn't. Emily didn't speak. Her eyes glassed over like she was sitting behind a pane. "We'll review the dates," he added. My jaw locked. My hands didn't. I kept them still on the armrest, the way you keep a level bubble centered while the world tilts. 26 is a board cut too long. You can't make it shorter with hope. You cut again. I looked at the corner of the screen, at the timestamp. I didn't blink. Silence has weight. It pressed down on the three of us until the gel felt cold through the paper sheet. I heard the printer spit out a strip of images. I heard a nurse laugh somewhere distant. Emily found her voice. "Is that normal?" she asked, small as a child. Dr. Cole didn't answer right away. He measured once more, slower, like double-checking a beam that shouldn't be bowed. Dates can be off, he said, but his eyes said they rarely are off by miles. He wiped the wand, handed Emily tissues, and printed another page. Measurements, not memories. I've seen men panic. I've seen men break. I didn't. I said, "Doctor, I'd like copies of everything." My voice sounded like it does on a job site when a crane swings steel, steady because it has to be. He nodded. "Jack, could we talk for a moment in my office?" Emily looked at me like a ledge looks at the ground. I stood anyway. His office is small, wood-paneled, tidy. Diplomas, a jar of peppermint, a photo of us shaking hands at the wing dedication. The door clicked shut with that soft medical latch that keeps hard things inside. Dr. Cole sat, then stood, then sat again. "Jack," he began, "I'm going to speak plainly." I appreciated that. Men my age do. Based on development, the gestational age tracks at 26 weeks, give or take a few days. That doesn't align with the dates we recorded earlier. He paused, let me catch up, or maybe let himself catch up to what he was saying. Outside the window, a pickup backed into a spot and corrected twice. I watched it like it could change the math. "Is there any chance you were out of town during that window?" he asked. I didn't say yes. I said the exact dates. He wrote them down. When he looked up, he looked older. "I'm sorry," he said. He didn't have to be. Proof is a cruel thing because it doesn't argue. It sits there. I pulled my phone and opened the Denver folder. Flight confirmations, hotel receipts, photos of rebar grids dusted with frost, a selfie with the crew at a midnight pour, headlights cutting steam. 23 weeks ago, I was in Colorado for 21 days straight. I called Emily every night from the same parking lot next to the same yellow line. I could describe the crack in that paint. Dr. Cole scanned the dates, the times, the timestamps on the pictures. We set them beside the numbers on his printout like studs on 16-inch centers. They didn't meet, not even close. "I wish this were a mistake," he said. Mistakes leave room. This left none. He offered counseling resources. I asked for the clinical summary and the image set. He printed them. I put them in a manila envelope with my name on it. It felt like a deed to land I didn't want. Memory is a carpenter. It builds in sequence. Denver comes back in smells. Wet concrete, cheap coffee, snow in the seams of my boots. I remember waking at 4:30, FaceTiming Tyler before school, telling him to keep his elbow up on the swing. I remember Emily yawning on the screen, saying she missed me, saying the house felt too quiet. I believed her. I sent her a photo of the skyline and a text about the bonus I'd earn if we hit the deadline. She sent back a heart. I saved it without knowing why. I walked past hotel lobbies filled with strangers and thought about going home to my own. 26 weeks sneers at those moments. It says, "You weren't there." It says, "Someone else was." I don't hate Denver. You can't hate the place you worked your heart out. But every snowflake in those memories feels like a new inch on the ruler. The measurement doesn't move. My life does. We didn't say much on the walk back down the hall. Emily sat on the edge of the exam table, crumpling the tissue paper into a white flower. I handed her the envelope. She didn't take it. Dr. Cole spoke softly as if volume could bruise. "I can answer medical questions," he said. "The rest is personal." I nodded. Personal is a word folks use when they mean devastating. I looked at the ultrasound photo, a profile, a promise. I'm not an unkind man. I am a precise one. "Emily," I said, careful as a carpenter on a final cut, "these measurements mean what we both know they mean." Her face drained. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words, just air. The machine still hummed in the corner, the heartbeat clear as a metronome. I set the photo down, square to the table's edge. Then I said the sentence out loud so the room would stop lying. "The baby isn't mine." I drove home without the radio. Turn signal clicking, tires humming, that hollow sound you get when a truck bed is empty. The manila envelope rode shotgun like a witness. The porch light was already on. Our flag lifted once in the Texas wind and settled. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and last night's chili. Emily's shoes were by the door, pointed neat as an apology. I set the envelope on the kitchen island and washed my hands longer than needed. the way you do after handling insulation. She came down the hallway, blotting her cheeks, mascara like small bruises. "Please," she said, voice splintering. I pulled out a chair, sat, counted slow. The refrigerator motor kicked on and sounded like a faraway storm. "We'll talk," I said, calm because Tyler was upstairs, calm because rage teaches nothing. She reached for my arm, stopped halfway. "Don't tell him," she whispered. "Not yet." I nodded once. Not yet. Understood. At the table, Emily folded into herself, elbows tight, palms pressed like she was praying to reverse time. "I messed up," she said. Not a confession, a placeholder. Tears hit the wood and spread like spilled coffee. I fetched a towel because motion keeps a man from saying what he can't take back. "How long?" I asked. She shook her head, hair sticking to her lip gloss. I was lonely. You were gone. I didn't plan." Excuses stack like bad lumber. They look tall until they lean. "Say his name," I said. She stared at the fridge instead. The clock thudded. Upstairs, Tyler's footsteps crossed his room, oblivious. Emily reached for my hand. I kept it on the towel. "I love you," she said, and I remembered our vows like road signs on a highway I wasn't on anymore. "Stop," I told her. "Don't spend that word here." Her phone buzzed on the counter. One name flashed. Marcus. I didn't say the name. I picked up the envelope and slid it into the safe behind a stack of warranty folders. Paper before passion. That's how you keep a building standing in a storm. In the mirror over the sink, I recognized the set of my jaw. Emily hovered in the doorway like a shadow that had lost its source. "We can fix this," she whispered. I thought about wood glue. It holds, but the seam always shows. "Go to bed," I said. "We'll talk tomorrow." I needed distance, not drama. I needed a list, not a scene. Tyler called down, "Dad?" I told him everything was fine in the voice I use when a beam comes in crooked and the crew needs me to be the level. When the house quieted, I walked room to room, touching door frames I'd installed, counting hinges I'd hung, grounding myself in work. My heart had cracked. I could feel air through it. Morning hits harder when you've lied to your kid, even if the lie was only, "It's fine." Tyler came down in a hoodie, hair sticking up like wheat after a wind. "You good, Dad?" he asked. "Always," I said, and poured 2 bowls of cereal like it was any other Tuesday. He talked about practice, about a math quiz, about a batting glove he wanted to save for. I watched his hands as he poured milk, steady and sure. 14, and more of a man than some I've hired. He asked if the baby could hear us yet. "They say sound helps," he said. "Maybe we should read aloud." I felt something break again. I told him that was a good idea, that we'd try tonight. He grabbed his backpack, tapped our photo on the fridge, and jogged out to the bus. The door clicked shut. I put bowls in the sink, untouched. Protect him, I thought, whatever it takes. I didn't sleep. The house settled the way houses do. Tiny creaks, the heater sighing, the roof ticking as it cooled. I took coffee black and went to the garage. The workbench light threw a hard cone across the pegboard where my tools hung in order. I laid out a legal pad and wrote dates, times, miles, Denver, phone records, credit card statements. I drew a line where 23 meets 26 and stared until the ink bled. It didn't move. Around 2, I set up the second phone I'd bought and hadn't admitted to myself. New number, no shared cloud, notes titled questions. I listed what I needed. Copies, receipts, the hotel name, the name I wouldn't say. I kept my pen moving to keep my hands from doing anything else. Rage is a poor carpenter. It builds crooked things. Paper holds. Sunlight found the edge of the garage door by 5. I closed the notebook. I had a plan. Almost. At dawn, I stood in the yard, boots in frost, and made a promise I could keep. I would not swing wild. I would not shout in rooms where my son sleeps. I would do what I do best. Measure, mark, and cut once. That meant patience. That meant documentation. That meant protecting Tyler and the company before I touched the marriage. I brewed fresh coffee, packed his lunch, and wrote a note on the napkin, "You've got this." Because boys remember small things when big things break. Emily watched me from the hallway, eyes red, arms folded like she needed to hold herself together. "Are we okay?" she asked. "We're not anything yet," I said, and heard how cold that sounded. Cold keeps steel straight, warm bends it. After the bus pulled away, I called my attorney and said I needed a quiet meeting. Then I called the doctor's office for certified copies. I didn't need a scene. I needed proof. I started small, the way you trace a leak behind drywall. "Listen, Mark, cut only where you must." The second phone lived in my glove box. I set alerts on our shared accounts, tightened the bank's fraud settings, and pulled itemized statements by date and zip code. I asked Cole for vendor logs for taxes, and he didn't blink. Good friends don't need the whole story to help. I checked our home Wi-Fi history like I'd check a breaker panel, one switch at a time. Patterns showed up fast. Trips to a coffee shop out of our routine, gas stations off the highway toward the lake, charges at a hotel I only knew from billboards. I didn't confront. I collected. When a man's life is a job site, you learn the power of photos and timestamps. Nate, the investigator, set a quiet perimeter. Nothing flashy, just lenses, clocks, and patience. By Thursday, I had a map. It didn't point home. It pointed to someone. His name surfaced like a bubble in fresh concrete. Marcus Hale. Real estate developer out of Austin. Website full of glass and promises. Smiles in suits that never saw rain. The kind of man who calls shortcuts creativity and invoices storytelling. I watched a video of him pitching a condo tower, hands carving the air, words slick as oil on a driveway. His Instagram was travel, tastings, and rooftop pools. No sawdust, no steel-toed boots. A rental BMW with plates that change every quarter. But it wasn't the gloss that sold me. It was the proximity. Photos from charity events in our county. Tags from folks Emily knew. A gala last spring where our donation bought a mention and his bought a spotlight. There he was, laughing with a circle that loved attention more than outcomes. "I've led crews long enough to read posture," his said Hunter. Mine shifted to guard dog. I didn't say his name aloud. Yet. I would soon. People think affairs start in shadows. Sometimes they start under chandeliers. The Hill Country Relief Gala was one of those nights where the steak is tepid and the speeches run long, but the photos are sharp. Emily wore navy silk. I wore a tie I kept tugging straight. We shook hands, we posed, we pledged. That's where I first saw Marcus up close, though his name didn't stick then. He knew the MC, knew the lighting, knew where cameras would be. He toasted donors like a man who believed money should flirt back. Emily stepped away to coordinate a silent auction item. Marcus stepped in, smooth as a new countertop. He made a joke about my company's billboard, measure twice, cut once, and told her he wished more men measured before they spoke. Harmless line, I thought, and went to move a ladder for staff in heels. Later, Emily's laugh came from a different corner. I told myself it was a room's echo. It wasn't. The first bouquet arrived midday. Lilies in a square vase, no card, delivered when I was pouring slab at a school site. Emily said it was from the committee. Thank you, flowers. I checked the event's expense report a week later. No line item for florist. Then came the text that lit her phone like a metronome at 9:17 p.m., 10:03, 10:41. She started taking calls on the porch with the door half closed, eyes on the yard, voice soft. My second phone grabbed screenshots of our cellular bill. Long calls routed through an Austin exchange. The credit card flagged a dinner at Savannah Prime, pricey, 40 minutes south, on a night she told me her sister needed her. Tipsy receipts don't lie. 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, a dessert, no one orders alone. I printed it all and slid it into the envelope beside the ultrasound. Paper stacking on paper, truth heavy as a cinder block. Patterns aren't loud. They are relentless. This one marched. Grandview Hotel, exit 214, the billboard with the sunset that makes every room look like a promise. Nate tailed her there twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. Photos from the parking lot showed the same black BMW easing in, the same valet recognizing him with a nod meant for regulars. Room 804, then 1012. numbers different, routine the same. Emily arrived with a tote bag that never came home. Marcus arrived with nothing but a key card and certainty. Nate's timestamps were precise. 6:12 p.m. Door closes. 8:47 p.m. Door opens. 9:03 p.m. Elevator down. I studied the angles, the lighting, the telltale reflection in a framed print that caught a silhouette you can't mistake when you've shared a bed for 15 years. I could smell hotel hallway carpet in my head, that cleaned too much scent that tries to wipe stories away. Stories cling. I didn't drive there. I didn't kick doors. I filed, labeled, and breathed. The room would testify for me. Older men know this. The loudest thing in a house is restraint. I said nothing. Not to Emily, not to Cole, not to the mirror. I went to work, shook hands, signed checks. I coached Tyler's team and taught a boy how to square his shoulders at the plate. But my mind ran a chalk line through every new day, straight, tight, pointing toward a structure I was building one measured cut at a time. Hate is hot and sloppy. I chose heat you can hold. Focus. I booked a lunch at the Prosper Ridge Country Club through a mutual contact, pitched as networking with a rising Austin developer. Marcus texted yes within the hour, smiley face I could hear. Good. Let him come toward me. In the garage that night, I sharpened a pencil and wrote the plan on a yellow pad. Meet, record, verify, document, protect Tyler, protect assets. Then I underlined the last line twice. Do, not, miss. I met Nate Brooks at a diner that still uses real sugar jars and coffee that tastes like 5 a.m. He's mid-40s, ex-detective, the kind of man who watches doors without turning his head. I don't kick doors, he said. I document, photos, video, time. Good. I don't need a cowboy. I need a clock. We agreed on a retainer and boundaries. No stunts, nothing illegal, no surprises. He slid a simple form across the table, and I signed my name with a hand that didn't shake. We synced calendars, shared a short list of places and times, and he asked one last question. What do you want out of this, Jack? I told him the truth older men respect. Clarity and protection for my boy. He nodded like he'd heard that before. Before we stood, he said, if there's something to find, I'll find it. Outside, the wind lifted the flag over the post office. I watched it snap once and fall still. So would I. Evidence adds weight in ounces until it feels like a ton. The first envelope came Wednesday. Clean photos, tight angles, timestamps punched into the corner like a punch clock. Nate's notes were short, like a carpenter's marks on a stud. Date, time, location, in and out. I added bank statements, itemized by merchant. I pulled phone logs and highlighted calls that ran long after midnight to the same Austin exchange. Receipts told their own story. 2 entrees, 1 dessert, always split. Gas purchases timed to back roads toward the lake. Paper doesn't flinch, it just stacks. I kept it all in a fireproof box with our passports and the deed to the house, and I labeled every folder with a date and a single word. Hotel, dinner, call. A man can lie to your face, he can't lie to your ledger. Late Thursday, Nate texted, package at your porch. Inside, a photo through glass, 2 figures in a mirror, close enough to erase doubt. Emily doubled down on normal. She baked a peach cobbler and sent a tray to our neighbor who'd pulled a hamstring. She invited 2 church ladies over to talk nursery colors, then spent the hour texting under the table like a teenager. She started a baby name list on a chalkboard by the fridge. She asked about my day, then looked past me at nothing. I recognized the performance. Grown men do it at fundraisers and funerals. You hit your mark so no one notices the tremor. She mentioned a new restorative yoga class on Thursdays. The mat by the door stayed rolled, but the heels came out of the closet, the ones she saves for events with cameras. I poured tea and said I'd be late at the shop. She nodded, relieved to have the script back on track. When the garage door closed behind me, I sat in the truck and timed her taillights to the minute. The clock and I agreed. Saturday, Tyler spread a drop cloth and opened a quart of sky blue. Clouds, he said, grinning. So the baby's got something soft to look at. He laid the first shape with a steady wrist, then feathered the edges with a dry brush until it looked like breath. He told me about a drill he wanted to try at batting practice. 3 swings with eyes closed to feel balance. 14 is a good teacher if you listen. I kept my voice level, kept my eyes on the wall, and handed him the roller when he asked. He stepped back and squinted, then made the smallest adjustment, a dab of white to lift the edge. Better, he said. Little things matter. I swallowed hard. They do, I said. He asked if I thought the baby would like baseball. Maybe, I said. Maybe they'll like paint. He laughed, put a tiny handprint in the corner, and signed it with the date. I signed beside his. There's a pain that is loud and a pain that hums. Mine hummed, steady as a generator behind the shed. Older men learn to breathe around it. Count, lift, set, repeat, so you don't break a good board in your hands. After Tyler went upstairs, I stood in the garage and looked at the pegboard. Everything in its place. The square, the level, the chalk line looped neat. My father taught me to string a chalk line with your thumb high so the snap doesn't sting. Control the recoil, he'd say. I heard him then. I wrote a list to keep my hands busy. Accounts, attorney, copies, cameras. I added patience at the bottom and circled it. Hate burns hot and leaves you with ash. Focus burns clean. Emily opened the door, said my name soft. I answered without turning. Tomorrow, I said. We'll talk tomorrow. The hum didn't stop, but I could work in its noise. I always have. I would now. I started reading Marcus the way you read lumber. Sight down the edge, look for bow, twist, knots that will split under load. Public records tell you more than gossip does. Company filings, project press releases, permits issued, permits extended. The same names showed up on his deals. Consultants good at introductions, not finishes. He bragged about fast tracking, which is a fancy way of telling time to sit down. Tradesmen don't like fast tracking. Concrete cures when it's ready. A news clip praised a ribbon cutting. A neighborhood forum complained about runoff in trucks at midnight. I took notes. I watched a walkthrough video of his site. No guardrails where they belong, silt fence sagging, hard hats on forearms instead of heads. It looked like speed pretending to be success. I don't mind ambition. I mind shortcuts. My pen slowed at one sponsor logo that kept reappearing. Lawyers. 2 clicks later, I found her name. Not his. Samantha. I stopped scrolling. Samantha Hale. Attorney. Mother of twin girls with matching soccer bows in every photo. Her firm bio was crisp and kind. Her Facebook was all Halloween costumes and school fundraisers. I stared too long at a picture of Marcus carrying one daughter on his shoulders, the grin of a man who knows where the cameras are. I thought about Tyler's cloud on the nursery wall and felt something in me go very still. This wasn't just my house, it was hers too. 2 kitchens, 2 calendars, 2 sets of promises. I printed 3 pages and set them under the clip in my folder. I wrote her office number on a yellow sticky note, then didn't dial. Not yet. You don't call a woman like that with heat in your voice. You call with facts and a plan that respects the blast radius. I put the sticky note in my wallet, behind my insurance card. Then I checked the time for Thursday's lunch. When a beam fails, it's rarely one nail. It's rot you didn't see, load you didn't count, kick you didn't brace. That's what this was. Not just infidelity, but layers of deceit laid by steady hands. Emily's lies kept the door open. Marcus's charm kept the car running. Money greased the hinges. Time hid the noise. And down the block, a wife with 2 girls baked cupcakes and believed her world was intact. Investors signed on dotted lines. Inspectors waved things through. It wasn't one betrayal. It was a network, and we were all tied into it without consent. Naming a thing gives you power over it. I wrote the words across the top of my legal pad. Multi-layered deception. Under it, I drew arrows. Family, business, law, public. Each would need light. Each would need care. I closed the folder and felt the old steadiness return. This wasn't a brawl. This was a build. And I was done being the only honest nail. I booked lunch at the Prosper Ridge Country Club, the place where deals pretend to be friendships. I pitched it as a partnership chat. Walker Construction is expanding. Heard you're doing exciting things in Austin. Marcus Hale arrived 10 minutes early, smile polished, cufflinks flashing like turn signals. We shook hands. His palm was soft, cologne loud. I set my phone on the table, screen down, voice memo rolling. He talked while the bread cooled. Pipeline, investors, creative timelines. I asked simple questions. Builders ask other builders. How do you handle permits on tight schedules? He winked. The waiter poured tea. Marcus leaned in, lowered his voice, and started selling the version of himself he liked best. I let the wind fill his sails. Men like him don't notice the current. They only feel the speed. When the check came, I reached for it. He insisted, of course. Let me host you on site next week, he said, delighted with himself. I smiled back. I'll bring a hard hat. We took a corner table by the window. Marcus spoke in headlines. We fast-track everything. City loves us. He laughed at his own pitch. I watched the corners of his eyes. They didn't move. He bragged about flexible inspectors, about consultants who knew how to translate regulations. He described stormwater plans as suggestions, safety rails as placeholders, and fines as line items. I repeated his words back to him, slow, curious, like a man impressed. He agreed, each time a little louder. The recorder heard every syllable. Subcontractors sign ironclad NDAs, he added. Keep squeaky wheels from squeaking. He listed 3 job sites and named a 4th off the books he said would never make Instagram. I sipped tea and nodded like a grateful student. You should see it, he said. You'll love our efficiency. Outside, a flag snapped once in the March wind. I checked my watch as if juggling a busy calendar. Text me the addresses, I said. He did, immediately. I showed up in jeans and boots, not a suit. The first site smelled like wet gypsum and hurry. Guardrails sat stacked, not installed. The silt fence drooped like tired laundry. A laborer climbed a ladder with no spotter while a foreman looked at his phone. I took photos like a tourist who loves rules, wide, then tight, then the posted OSHA sign for context. The superintendent shook my hand and bragged about schedule compression. We pour tonight, he said, glancing at black clouds. Weather doesn't slow us. At Site 2, a trench yawned without shoring. I stepped back because memory carries faces of men who didn't. Site 3 backed up to a creek already brown with runoff. I asked about stormwater plans. We're drafting, a manager said, eyes sliding away. I snapped a shot of the empty spill kit and the open dumpster bleeding drywall. A tired electrician told me quietly, You didn't hear it from me. Dump runs happen after midnight. I heard it. That night, Nate dropped a folder thick as Sunday paper. Follow the money, he said, setting it on my workbench. Shell LLCs paid consultants who shared a mailbox with Marcus's holding company. Corporate cards funded hotel suites, spa charges, and designer gifts. The Grandview ledger matched dates and rooms we already had on camera. There were donations that looped back as project fees. I saw wire transfers labeled vendor advance land inside a personal account 2 days later. One card, used for discretionary outreach, covered flowers delivered on Thursdays. The same Thursdays Emily vanished into restorative yoga. Nate's notes were clean. Amounts, dates, merchant IDs. He flagged a pattern that would interest the IRS and a stack of site photos that belonged in an EPA inbox. I flipped pages until my hand stilled on a line labeled Private Dining, Savannah Prime. The tip matched the receipt from our kitchen drawer. Numbers lined up like studs. Fraud always thinks it's clever. Math knows better. I cleared the garage pegboard and built a case the way I build a house. Square, plumb, level. Left column, timeline from Denver to now, with receipts and ultrasound measurements. Middle, Marcus, sites, violations, boasts transcribed word for word. Right, money, LLCs, transfers, hotel bills, flowers. Across the top, EPA, OSHA, IRS, and one more word, family. Under family, I pinned a school photo of Tyler and a printout of Samantha's firm bio. Red string is dramatic in movies. I used blue painter's tape and labels. The shape that emerged wasn't complicated. It was arrogant. The next step wasn't a shout. It was a sequence. Call regulators with documents, not feelings. Secure my company. Move personal assets behind stronger doors. Speak to the only other adult whose home was inside this blast radius. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. You good for Tuesday? I typed yes. Then I looked at Samantha's number and took a long breath I could hold. I wrote a script because scripts keep a man from oversteering. I dialed Samantha's office while Tyler worked on algebra in the next room. Mrs. Hale, my name is Jack Walker. This is difficult. I have information about your husband and my wife. I let the silence do its job. She asked who referred me. No one, I said. I have dates, photos, finances, and I won't waste your time. Her voice stayed steady, lawyer steady. Why me? She asked. Because you deserve the truth before the papers do, I answered. I told her I wasn't looking for drama. I wanted accountability and children protected. She exhaled slowly, like someone bracing before a wave. Bring what you have. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the coffee shop next to my building, she said. If this is a stunt, you'll regret it. It isn't, I said. I build for a living. I hung up, opened the fireproof box, and packed a folder that felt heavier than steel. The coffee shop buzzed with keyboards and milk steam. Samantha walked in with a courthouse posture, composed, efficient, eyes that have seen hard things and kept notes. We sat in a back booth. I slid the folder across and said nothing for a full minute while she paged through. Ultrasound dates, Denver receipts, hotel logs, photos no spouse should ever have to see. She didn't cry. She set her jaw, tapped once on the table, and asked 3 questions that told me she was smart and kind in equal parts. Then she opened her own folder. Irregular transfers, consulting contracts paid to thin air, a prenup clause Marcus had apparently forgotten existed, and a contingency plan she'd drafted months ago but hadn't activated. You're not my client, she said, but our interests align. We outlined safeguards, emergency asset freeze, custody motion, forensic accounting. She closed the folder and squared it to the table's edge. We file Monday, she said. I nodded. Monday. We talked like adults who accept gravity. I would report environmental and safety violations with photos, dates, and recorded admissions. She would file for divorce with an emergency freeze, citing marital waste and risk to the community. I would speak to my attorney about restructuring to shield Tyler and my crews from collateral damage. She would coordinate timing so the legal hits landed close together. We set a clock. Calls at 7 a.m., filings by noon, press by afternoon if the agencies moved fast. This isn't revenge, I said. It's accountability. He built a lie with other people's money. Samantha nodded. And with my daughter's calendar. We didn't shake hands right away. We sat in the hum of espresso and agreed to protect the innocent first. Then we stood. She extended her hand, firm, brief, professional. Monday, she repeated. I walked out into the clear Texas light, felt the winter air in my lungs, and understood the build had entered its next phase. I woke before the alarm and set the coffee to strong. At 7 a.m., sharp, I opened the folder, checked every tab, and made the first of 3 calls. One to the state environmental desk with site photos, stormwater runoff, and a neat transcript of Marcus bragging about flexible rules. One to the federal tax intake with wire transfers, shell LLCs, and corporate cards that somehow bought roses in hotel suites. And one to Samantha. No drama, just timing. You said Monday, I told her. It's Monday. We synchronized watches the way old coaches do before a big inning. Regulators at 7, IRS submission by 8, filings right after lunch. I kept my voice steady so my hands would follow. Tyler packed his backpack and asked about batting practice. I'll be there, I said, because promises to your kid outrank everything. I hung up, printed final copies, and slid them into labeled envelopes. This wasn't revenge. This was procedure, with teeth. The hotline answered on the second ring. I spoke like a builder filing a punch list. Dates, addresses, trench without shoring, guardrails stacked, not installed, creek turned brown after a storm. I sent the photos while I described them, then attached the audio where Marcus called fines line items. The agent was all business. Older men respect that. Received, she said, reading back file names like she was framing a door. We'll open a case and route inspections today. She gave me a case number that sounded like a serial on a steel beam. I wrote it in block letters on my legal pad, underlined twice. She asked if I'd be willing to provide a statement. Yes, I said. I build here. My crews live here. We ended with a portal link and a promise. They'd move fast. I added the number to the garage wall. The tape line across my life tugged tighter. Somewhere, a siren stretched awake. Fraud doesn't get tired. Math never blinks. I filed the tax complaint like assembling a cabinet, one piece at a time, square and flush. Transfers labeled vendor advance landing in personal accounts. Consulting paid to a P.O. box. Corporate cards covering flowers on Thursdays that matched hotel dates. I uploaded spreadsheets Nate prepared, copies of ledgers, and a summary written in plain English. A woman on the intake line asked calm, pointed questions, amounts, dates, who approved. I have receipts and recordings, I said. Upload both, she replied, giving me a reference number and the polite warning that they don't discuss active investigations. Understood. I don't need updates. I need outcomes. She mentioned their whistleblower unit without promising a thing. I thanked her and saved the confirmation email to 3 places: computer, drive, thumb. Then I closed the laptop and breathed through my nose like I do before lifting heavy. The money trail was set. Next came the courthouse clock. I stepped onto the back porch where the morning felt clean and called Samantha. It's time, I said. She didn't ask if I was sure. My paralegal's ready. Judge is on duty at 1:30, she said. We ran the sequence one more time. Petition, emergency motion to freeze assets, custody orders, forensic accounting. I promised to text her the environmental case number and IRS reference. She promised to align her filing so it landed while Marcus still thought the day belonged to him. You okay? She asked, not like a lawyer, like a mother. I'm steady, I said. My boy has practice at 5. She exhaled and said, We'll get you there. Before we hung up, she added, When this turns public, don't read the comments. Older adults know some fires burn oxygen you need for better things. Not my first rodeo, I said. I set the phone down, checked the envelopes by the door, and heard the day pick up speed. By late morning, the quiet started to talk. 2 white SUVs rolled past one of Marcus's sites, slow as surveyors. A superintendent texted me a photo of inspectors standing by the creek with clipboards. At noon, the Capital Business Journal pushed a headline to my phone. Developer faces environmental probe. Sources cite safety concerns. The story didn't name me. It didn't have to. Investors read first, call second. Cole stepped into my office and set a coffee down. Phones are going to hum, he said. They did. A banker asked if Walker Construction had exposure on hail projects. None, I said, because planning protects. My crews stayed on schedule. Men who use their hands respect a boss who keeps his. Around 12:40, my screen flashed a name I'd decided not to say out loud. Marcus. Call me. I didn't. A second ping landed harder. We need to meet now. I silenced the phone and watched the headline move. At 1:07 p.m., Samantha texted a single word. Filed. 10 minutes later, TRO granted. Accounts frozen pending review. She moves like a surgeon. Clean cuts, no wasted motion. By 2:15, her server had handed Marcus the petition in his lobby. A receptionist took a picture from behind the ficus and posted it fast. Nothing travels like gossip with a photo. I pictured Marcus opening the packet and finding his own reflection in legalese he wouldn't enjoy reading. He called twice, left a voicemail that tried to sound calm and came out thin. Emily's name lit up my screen next. Then her footsteps hit our hallway like she was practicing a story on the way to me. I kept working. Frozen assets sound cold. To a man like Marcus, they burn. Samantha pinged again. Emergency hearing set for 3:30. If he moves money, he's in contempt. I set my pen down, felt the garage wall map behind my eyes, and let the next hour arrive. Emily came in pale, one hand on the counter like the room tilted. Her phone buzzed on repeat. Marcus, emergency, need to talk, everything's falling apart. She looked at me like I could patch a roof in a hurricane. Jack, what do we do? The part of me that fixes things reached for a tool that wasn't there. We protect Tyler, I said. We speak through attorneys. We don't chase fires we lit. She said she never meant for any of this. Good intentions don't unspill paint. Her card declined for a delivery she'd scheduled. The look on her face told me Samantha's filing had found its mark. Please, she said, and reached. I stepped back, not cruel, just firm. Pack what you need for a few days, I said. He might try to pull you into his mess. Don't go. The phone lit again. She didn't touch it. From the driveway, I heard my boy's bus brakes. I chose what to carry to the door. Calm. The week compressed into one hard moment. Inspectors turned into agents. Questions turned into warrants. Thursday evening, a local station cut from weather to a live shot outside Marcus's office. Blue lights washed the glass. He came out between two men in plain jackets, hands behind him, jaw set like a man who still thinks charm is a key. Cameras snapped, microphones lunged, the familiar suit looked smaller under the weight of custody. Samantha texted one line, "Booked." I didn't cheer. I stood in my garage and watched the clip once, then turned my phone face down. Emily was at her sister's. Tyler was in the garage doorway asking if I needed a hand setting the miter saw. Always, I said, and showed him where to brace the board. On TV, they called it an investigation. In my house, it was a lesson. Numbers, dates, and choices meet eventually. The cuffs didn't click for me. They clicked so my son could sleep. News travels faster than pickup trucks in our town. By midweek, Emily's parents called, not to ask, to announce. We need space, her mother said, voice ironed flat. Her dad cleared his throat like men do when they'd rather be fixing a fence. Sort yourselves out, he added, and hung up before I could answer. Her sister let Emily sleep on the couch 2 nights, then set rules that sounded like eviction notices. No calls after 10, no deliveries, no drama. I don't blame them. People build walls when water rises. Emily texted me long paragraphs that said nothing new. I answered with one sentence at a time. Tyler is safe. Bills are paid. Speak through counsel. I drove past her parents' house on the way to a job site. Porch light off at dusk. Curtains drawn at noon. You can measure distance in miles or in silence. Either way, the number grows. That night, the house creaked like it finally understood who'd left. The charity group chat went quiet on her name. Ladies who hugged hard at luncheons found other aisles in the grocery store. A neighbor who once borrowed our ladder waved from the mailbox and pretended the wind swallowed his voice. At church, we sat 2 rows farther back. People mean well when they whisper. They just do harm from a softer place. Cole kept it simple. I've got your 6, and moved invoices off my desk so I could think like a father first. A deacon stopped me after service and said his brother went through something similar in '98. He didn't offer advice, just a hand on my shoulder that felt like a brace under a sagging beam. Bless him for that. I learned to stop filling silence. You don't owe the crowd the blueprint to your pain. Let them guess. Let them tire. Rumor runs hot, then burns itself out. Truth works slower. It holds. It also demands something next. Prosper Ridge hums with harmless talk until it isn't. Murphy's Diner, the barbershop, sideline bleachers, places where men lean on counters and think they're being kind. Tyler heard a version at school before lunch. Kids don't mean cruelty. They just carry headlines like loose nails in pockets. The principal called me, steady and respectful. He handled it, she said. Asked to finish his quiz. I drove over anyway. We sat in the counselor's office with a box of tissues we didn't touch. You're not the story, I told him. You're the son. That's different. He nodded, jaw set in a way that looked like my father's photograph. We talked about what's ours to answer and what we let pass like bad weather. On the way out, a custodian I've known for years shook my hand and said, "It gets quieter." Older men know that's the right promise. By dinner, the phone buzzed less. The quiet felt earned, like a good day's work. We were in the garage sanding the bookshelf edge we'd left proud on purpose. Tyler kept the block flat, worked along the grain, checked with his fingertips like I taught him. "Dad," he said without looking up, Is Mom coming home? There it was. The sentence every man hears different than he imagines. I could have talked around it, bought us an hour with soft words and weather. He's 14. He deserves a straight cut. I set the sandpaper down and took in the room. The pegboard, the chalk line, the cloud he painted on the nursery wall we hadn't finished. Before you answer, he added, voice trembling, I'm okay either way. I just need to know where to put my stuff. Practical kid. My kid. I pulled a shop stool over so we were eye level. The clock on the wall ticked. The same, steady, unbothered by people's hearts. I took a breath so the next words would stand without wobble. No, I said. The word landed solid, not sharp. Tyler blinked hard, then nodded, like a hitter taking a called strike and resetting. Okay, he said. We made a plan right there on the workbench. His room stays his. The nursery becomes a study for now. We'll do dinners at the table, not in front of screens. He can call his mom on Sundays if he wants, with me nearby until he doesn't. We'll meet a counselor who knows how to translate big feelings into English. I promised we'd keep baseball, keep mornings at the hardware store, keep the rules, show up, own your mistakes, don't lie. He asked if I was mad. I'm a lot of things, I said, but I'm your dad first. He leaned in, shoulder to chest, the way boys do when they're still deciding how tall to be. The sander hummed to a stop. The house was quiet. Tomorrow we start building on what didn't break. I spent a week doing what grown men do when storms hit. I shored up the frame. My attorney filed updates. Operating agreement tightened, lines of credit locked, house covered under stronger protections, Tyler's college fund walled off like a clean job site. I changed beneficiaries, updated the will, and wrote down who gets called first if I'm laid up. Paperwork isn't romantic, but it's a promise in ink. At home, routine saved us. Breakfast at 7, homework at the table, not the couch. Batting practice Tuesdays and Thursdays. Phone calls with his mother on Sundays. On speaker, no surprises. We met a counselor who talks like a coach and listens like a grandfather. Tyler asked if we could keep reading and the nursery turned study. We did. I took down the crib list and left the cloud he painted. Some things you preserve to honor the child, not the plan. The first night we slept through, I knew we had footing. Next, I needed to pour. Walker Construction didn't just survive, it squared up. We hired a third-party safety officer who measures twice and scolds once. Every site got a fresh briefing. Rails up, trenches shored, stormwater honest. I told superintendents to build like their names were on every beam, and mine was on the city limits sign. We turned down a glossed-up project that smelled like shortcuts and took a school rebuild that didn't. Crews noticed. Bankers noticed. The town did too. Reputation is the one foundation the storm can't pry up if you maintain it daily. I started a small scholarship for kids who want to trade because clean work and full dignity change families. We added 3 words above the shop clock. Show up. Do right. Go home. Men pointed at it before heading out like a blessing. At month's end, I ran payroll, closed the ledger, and stood in the yard while concrete cured smooth. Business was steady. My son was steadier. The heart, mine, still needed plan sheets. I didn't chase new love. I chased quiet. Dawn runs along County Road 12, coffee on the porch, scripture and silence. I forgave without inviting chaos back in. 2 separate acts older folks understand. On Fridays, Tyler and I hit the hardware store, talk bats and budgets, then cook burgers we don't burn anymore. Sundays, I shake hands at church and leave before the gossip warms. I wrote Emily a letter I didn't mail. Boundaries, provisions, and the truth that I wish we'd guarded. I kept it for the file, not for her. In counseling, I learned bitterness is like wet rot. You don't always see it until the joist fails. So I cut back to good wood. We finished the study, framed the cloud with simple trim, and set 2 chairs beneath it. One night I slipped off my ring, placed it in the top drawer, and closed it gently. Not an ending exactly, a groundbreaking. Tomorrow the lesson becomes the blueprint. Betrayal didn't kill me, it tempered me. It taught me to rebuild on a real foundation. Truth, accountability, and the strength of a father and son who show up for each other. The cloud Tyler painted still hangs above chairs in our study. We read there at night, the house breathing steady, no secrets in the walls. I don't need revenge to feel whole. I need clean ledgers, straight lines, and a boy who sleeps through storms because his dad keeps watch. If you've stood where I stood, you know. Pain is loud, then it becomes instruction. Measure the damage, cut back to good wood, and start again. That's what I did. That's what we're doing tomorrow. If it were you, what would you choose? Forgive or cut ties? Drop one word below, forgive or cut ties, and tell me why. Your story might be the handrail someone needs. And if you think this is the last chapter, you haven't heard the next build.